I think Calgary has gone through a very interesting period over the last decade. We've had community conversations about what our identity is. What is Calgary and not? Is it a basketball city? What this business opportunity is with the story and legacy of the city, and how could you not say yes to that opportunity? It's been a blur for the last 2.5 years.
Hi, I'm Faisal Karmali. Welcome to Karmali Exchange. Business owners need to help each other out.
Keep on pushing to meet the needs of the customer will meet the needs of the business.
Let's pretend you have a city that you've been part of and not really well known for a certain, sporting group, let's say basketball. And then you have the entrepreneurial, innovative ideas to bring a basketball team to your city. This is not just any type of business. This is a sports entertainment business. How would you do that? No different than any other business. And so we've got the man who's brought the Calgary Surge to Calgary, one of the partners, top 40 under 40. Jason Ribeiro is here. Jason, it's been 5 years since you were on the show. Welcome back.
5 years too long. I'm beginning to think that you lost my number.
No, man, I the love is still here. I've been watching you build what you've built, and I'm really excited to talk about this because, first of all, Calgary's not known as a city of basketball until the Surge came. Yeah, we've had our little bit of dips here and there about an opportunity of an industry like basketball, which is growing huge in our country. And you are one of the members who brought a very new product to a city who hasn't been accustomed to it. Why would you do this? Why would you even try to bring something like the Surge to Calgary?
I think Calgary has gone through a very interesting period over the last decade. We've had community conversations about what our identity is. What is Calgary and not? Is it a basketball city? Is it a this city? Is it a that? And there was a bunch of navel gazing going around that I think clouded what were really good entrepreneurial instincts, business instincts, just say, hey, if there's a market for things that are cool, if there's a market for things that are innovative, if there's opportunities to bring sport, recreation, entertainment, arts and culture, fashion, and music together, I don't think anyone's going to say no to that. It really just had to be genuinely reflective of our community, and then anything is possible. You know, you look at what the city is touting now as kind of being this blue sky city for possibilities and opportunities. And so, you know, despite all of the, are we of this city, are we of that city, I just knew what basketball meant. I just knew what sport and entertainment meant. And I just knew, I think, how the community responds when people take on an ambitious and audacious challenge, like launching a pro sports team before your very eyes. And so didn't want to shirk away from the challenge, but also felt the responsibility of saying, there's a way to, I think, cement what this business opportunity is with the story and legacy of the city. And how could you not say yes to that opportunity? It's been a blur for the last 2.5 years, but a beautiful one.
Jason, I want to be quite honest with you. A few years ago, before the pandemic, I tried to bring a European soccer team to Calgary to build out youth soccer here. And I was part of this partnership group, and we failed miserably. Okay, we did a terrible job at it. I can only imagine all the work you had to go through to bring what you're bringing to a stage like this. What have been the biggest challenges of bringing a product into a market that isn't well known for that product?
Good on you for trying. I think a lot of the successes we've had very early on have been because we're standing on the shoulders of so many people who have gotten their teeth kicked in, had some lessons along the way, and it's allowed us to avoid some of those pitfalls. I think for us, the biggest challenge was just that lack of experience. But, you know, I'm always one of the biggest believers that for whatever reason, your biggest weakness is usually your biggest strength, and your biggest strength is usually your biggest weakness. Our biggest weakness was not having that pro sports background, but what that afforded us was this ability to do what we knew, which was community. The instincts that drove, I don't know if how many people know the backstory. The team was announced to have been moving here independent of private ownership August 17th. I'll never forget the day because it was my birthday and I hate my birthday. So there's this one sort of marker of, hey, this press release comes out. I'm doom scrolling because I'm irritated that I'm getting older. I see that this team is moving here, doesn't have an ownership group, is going to be launched as a league-owned team. And for whatever instincts happened the decade prior of the time that I've had here, led me to reaching out to the league that day. Hey, someone else might mess this up. I think we're the right people to do this. Here's a sense of what we would do in the market. That happened the same day that I heard the team was moving here. There was enough of an instinct to go off, but it was an instinct that was developed and honed over 10 years, even if that weren't pro sports instincts. It was community instincts, Calgary instincts, business instincts. By the time we were standing up and launching this team nationally at Winsport, it was October 19th, less than 2 months for lawyers and skeleton staff, branding and logo and all these other kinds of things. So it was a whirlwind and it was quick. But again, all of those instincts that have been developed, decade prior in Calgary came to the forefront and were useful. So you can see how your biggest weakness or your biggest challenge of, hey, there's no playbook here, we don't know what we're doing necessarily, can also be buttressed or at least eased by the fact that you do have your own instincts. And if you trust your own instincts, even though they may not be the pro sports ones, you'll be good. Now, needless to say, I think I'm a pretty good sports fan. So I think there was some reserve to rely on. I think the rest from there are the typical ones. As many people think this is a sexy business. And believe me, there are some fun things that are quite sexy about it. I loved your intro because it's just like any other one. You're dealing with operations. You're dealing with how do we forecast and plan, given that it's a new market and a new product coming together? How do you benchmark what success looks like? And then you also have the explosion of the team. We also own an equity stake in the league as well. And so for us, it's thinking about, well, how are our business partners doing across the league? How do we make sure that our product is growing in concert with 9 others across this country? Because if the league goes ahead of the team or the teams go ahead of the league, you'll never get that right balance. So I don't think there are any surprises here. They're all pretty conventional, pretty unsexy ones, but the upside and the opportunity has been just beyond every expectation we've had.
Jason, you've said the word we quite a few times talking about the venture. You're a partner in this. How did you come across your partners, or how did you determine that those people were the right people for this business?
So I'm lucky because there's only one. It's just myself and my friend and business partner, Usman Tahir Jat. And it goes back to that story, right? On August 17th, the years prior, as we were becoming friends and we'd had our first kids and became closer as dads, we started talking about what should we do together? Should we start something together? Again, mid 30s, should we join a board together? Like, what do guys our age do? And the story goes, I screenshotted that press release on August 17th. I texted Usman and said, is this the thing that we're thinking about doing? ? And he said, yeah. For us, it was only us two. And I think there's beauty in that because as you're developing the business, you're also developing your partnership, right? And I think the beautiful marriage that's come from that has been not only are we friends, but we've also found out we're very similar as owner operators. There's a lot of people in this sector that want to be owners, right? It's an asset class that's very rare. There's scarcity and there's a lot of vanity that can go alongside of it. For us, that was none of the appeal. For us, it was, we're doing these things in the community already, be it philanthropically, be it through board service. I'm the incoming chair of Sport Calgary. We had advocated for a number of years for increased sport and entertainment infrastructure, the economic development opportunity that comes with that. He's originally from Edmonton. I'm originally from Toronto. We've seen really interesting city building projects have done in terms of the arena in Edmonton and certainly the birth of the Raptors, which I got to see as a kid in front of my very eyes. And then it become kind of melded with the story of Toronto around the 2013, 2014, 2015 era. So for us, it was instinctual. For us, it was based on friendship. The owner-operator mentality is something you either have or you don't. We are true owner-operators. So we want to build a model that can potentially be a playbook for other opportunities in the future. And that's what our company's about.
Jason, a normal business will have customers who buy product or service, give feedback, and away you go. When you own a sports franchise or a sports business like yours, you have multiple levels of customers. You have ticket sales, people who attend the games, people buying the merch, and then you have fans who will just enjoy the game but not actually participate always. How do you deal with the different levels of feedback you get, solicited and unsolicited?
That's a very good question. I don't think enough owner-operators talk about that. Look, I think you have to stay one step ahead, right? You have to stay one step ahead of the curve, be it if that's where your customer base or your audience base is or not. Like I often reference this phrase in our office of the customer coming first, but the audience coming last. And those are two very different things. The customer wants high level of service, especially when they're going and dealing in a pro sports environment where they may have some reference. They may have gone to a football game. They may have gone to a hockey game. They may be season ticket members for another team. You have to be able to take the best practices and even some new practices that meet the customer where they're at. So I know our staff do an amazing job of going above and beyond, given that, hey, we were dealing with a smaller population base or a fan base to start with. We should be doing the things that no other team does. Instead of the rinky-dink keychain that some people are handing out for our amazing corporate partners. Sponsors is another group that we have to manage as well. We've done things that, I haven't seen a sports team do. I think we just handed out for some of our biggest spenders, be it corporately or personally, custom shoes with their initials on it, like literally hired an artist, did all of these things. So you want to punch above your weight from a customer experience perspective. I am a firm believer, though, that the audience does come last. You should be in this position. We shouldn't have said yes so immediately to this opportunity if we didn't know what we wanted to do with the thing. That's different than having, we have no experience operating a pro sports team, but I've got thoughts like other fans. I had thoughts on this jacket. I didn't want to put owner on the jacket, so I put water boy. I'm just making sure everyone's hydrated. You have to have these thoughts that catch your audience by surprise. And that's been everything from our apparel choices to our home opener at the Saddle Dome. Again, not a given that we should be opening up at the Saddle Dome to start year 2. So I think there's that level of staying ahead of your audience to bring something new, because why else are you doing this if you're just trying to do the conventional? The final point I'll make is this is a very black and white business in a way that others are not. The level of scrutiny and accountability as a business owner is almost something you dream of. Sometimes when you're an investor, sometimes when you're sitting on a corporate board, everything is kind of ambiguous. Hey, we don't know what the third quarter is going to look like, or hey, we don't know if we're going to meet our target, or there's X amount of excuses. You either win or you're lost in sports. And I think that that's instilled a great level of accountability. If anything, I'm a relentless competitor. And so from an audience perspective, winning helps. And so for us to go to 2 championship weekends in our first 2 years, and right now as part of this recording, we have the best record in the entire league halfway through the season. That matters. Some of the answers are right in front of your face.
When you hear about different sports teams in whichever league or genre of sport, you get different levels of talent. No different than a corporation, you'll get different levels of talent. But what we notice, especially from the media, is the egos that come out of this talent. And I think there's no different in a corporation, that you'll have the top talented staff member with the highest ego. How do you deal with high egos, especially in the public eye of these professional athletes?
I think this goes back to that owner-operator mentality. There's a reason I don't put my own name on the jacket and I do, put water boy. It's a little self-deprecating, but when I walk into our venue, if I see something on the ground, I'm going to pick it up. When our players go on the road, I rarely travel on the road, but if there's a game in Edmonton and I go up, we get our owner's seats or whatever, there's a suite. I stand behind the bench and cheer on our guys the entire game. The subtle messages that you send as a leader that are not calculated, like that's my instinct. God help me if I have to sit in a box and leer over the court, so disconnected from things. That filters down. I think, and all of that concerns going into your office and what your staff are seeing you do every single day. And that goes for both Usman and myself. There's nothing that, you're going to see us not do that we're asking you to do, or that we haven't done in a previous life. And I think that can reverberate in the most special way, because there are going to be times in sports in particular and business generally where things don't go well. I've talked about a lot of things that have gone well. There are going to be times that it don't. And the only thing that you have at that point in time is that you're standing right alongside someone supporting them. That's instinctual. That has to be the same way you operate as a business owner, almost has to be the same way that you operate as a parent or as a friend or a spouse. So for us, I think we've gotten the benefit of these are our natural instincts. And as you're dealing with these tense moments or egos that can come from the office or the staff or players or anything, it allows us to come to a home base of, hey, let's not complicate things. Everyone's going to be treated fair. Everyone's doing this for the right reasons. Everyone's working and busting their ass because we're committed to the goal of doing unbelievable things that the city hasn't seen or the sport and entertainment sector hasn't been seen. And I think the last point to that is, if you aim your eyes high enough, if you can humble yourself before the challenges, think about the macro challenge you just talked about of like owning and operating a basketball team in a market potentially not known for basketball. Then you layer on top of that, hey, year 2, we're going to do our home opener at the Saddle Dome. Never done a new venue. Year 3, we're going to do not only our season finale at the Saddle Dome, we're going to headline Stampede at the Saddle Dome on July 9th. And hey, by the way, I'm making us move another game, what's a home game, to a new venue in Red Deer for the first time, first ever neutral site game in the league's history. There's no playbook for any of this stuff.
Right.
No matter what you think about your own ego or your own skills or your own talent, humble yourself before the audacious challenge of not only building a basketball team as a business in the market generally, but each of those individual tasks and behemoths that they are that you have to deliver. And then, by the way, you've gone to championship weekend twice. You've fallen short of a championship in those couple of years. You still haven't, climbed the mountain, so to speak, to be cocky and have that ego. As long as the challenges stay big and we stay committed to delivering on those for our fan base, for each other, for history, I think it keeps egos in check pretty well.
When entrepreneurs get interviewed, they're asked to give advice. I'm going to reverse it on you. Jason, give me 2 pieces of advice that you've received over the years that sticks with you in every venture you go through.
That's a fantastic question. I think, I'll go from 2 directions, one on the business owner operator side, and then one also from a board and advisor side. I think from a board and advisor side, I'm the chair of our business development committee at the league. So all national revenue, potential expansion, and broadcast rights filter into my committee. And one of the best things that I've ever heard, especially when you have a management team and your business is scaling and you're trying to tampen down your own instincts of, hey, I just can get in there and do my thing. You don't get scale out of that. The phrase has always been fingers out, noses in. And it's just such a simple, almost a crude perspective on that's the goal. Like that should be the dream, that your nose is in, you feel close enough to the business or to its operations that you know what things to turn your nose into, right? You know what's around the corner. And from a management perspective, your team then knows, hey, I'm kind of in the background. I'm kind of looking. I'm at that 10,000 foot level so I can see the things that you're so tunnel visioned on because you have to. We have to move a court to Red Deer and then move it back to Calgary. You have to deal with this vendor or this operational challenge. Being nose in allows me to see the forest for the trees and give you some counsel or at least mitigate some risk. Fingers out, really, really important because as much as our instinct, especially hands-on owner operators, are to get in there, your staff is not going to scale. They're not going to get more independent or autonomous. When your eyes get bigger and your stomach gets bigger and you want to do 2 teams or 3 teams or 3 businesses or a new location, you won't have the management team in place. So I think it's really, really important around that fingers out, noses in mentality, especially when you're trying to scale your business. From an owner operator mentality, the one piece that's really, really stuck with me over the years, because again, I said this phrase at the beginning, standing on the shoulders of giants, whether they be failed ventures or successful ventures. We talk about there not being a playbook for basketball here. There's an amazing sport and entrepreneurial and community leadership ethos that has existed here from time. I remember 100%. The Olympic bid and Frank King. And if you actually go and look at these stories about how unglamorous building up the 88 Olympics was, if you think about even the most notable business leaders today, how much they've given back to sport and recreation and community, your community instincts are your business instincts. And so I think about that in the era of social impact businesses, philanthropic businesses that give generously to community. The lines are becoming insanely blurred. And I think as business owners who really, really want to be dialed in on the business side, you can almost have this reversion away from some of your community instincts. Every time I've had that fleeting thought, I've been brought back to home base of what's been successful in our market and the giants of whom their broad shoulders I'm standing on today. They've never lost sight of that. They've never lost sight. This is before social impact business. This is before United Nations framework for partnerships and all these other kinds of things existed. They did right by their community. If they took care of their community, the community took care of them and their business. And there was always this love affair. I would instill in business owners, whatever market you're in or whatever product you're in, you have to maintain that community connection. For us, in closing, it's codified our mission, which is to reflect, entertain, and unite the community through the power of sport and the arts. It's been good for business, but it's also been good for the community.
A few years ago, we were talking about the sport of hockey, and you mentioned your team was the Dallas Stars. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Do I still remember that?
Yeah.
Still your team?
Well, good. Yeah, lifelong for sure.
Yeah, if you look at how Dallas has evolved in their business with all the challenges moving and so forth, and then from there has been a very interesting journey for them, bringing in top talent. One thing I've learned from players and the management team out of the Dallas Stars is that they've told me you need to listen not only to your customer, but to your competition. What is your competition teaching you about this business today?
It's a fantastic analogy. And I'll just, as a pausing moment, the two, I think, franchises I've looked at the most closely have been the Raptors, just because they launched before my very eyes. I think I was 6 or 7 years old living in the GTA and got to see all of that experience take shape. So what an education. The Dallas Stars, for instance, as well, like the first year of hockey I watched was 99 when they won the cup. Yeah. I've seen this franchise through potential bankruptcy, potential moving, new ownership, new GM, Stanley Cup run in the pandemic era and the bubble era, and now 3 straight Western Conference championship appearances. They've done a lot of things right. And it's so funny, my head coach for the Calgary Surge came from the Dallas Mavericks. And he said with no sort of reservation, the Dallas Stars are one of the most popular teams in Dallas, potentially outpacing the Mavericks in recent years. So you look at what that means when you talk about, can Canada sustain an NBA franchise? Can Texas sustain a hockey franchise? And you look at two organizations that are doing that at the highest levels. The competition point is really important. As a competitor, my instincts really just aren't on the court. They're certainly at a business level as well. And I think I've struggled with being someone who asks a bunch of questions. It's not instinctive to me, but as a board director, one of the big, no-nos, you need to be someone who asks really, really good questions. And I've realized over time, maybe why I'm not as reticent of asking questions, but why I struggle in sort of framing them. It's because I'm watching and listening to everything. And so I feel like I'm constantly asking questions and doing the deep dive and the research, even if in a meeting, I'm forcing myself to kind of ask a question to fill a silence because no one else wants to. You keep a watchful eye and ear. And I think it's so beneficial. In our market, we're a great sports market. I'm watching what everyone is doing. And of my positioning just in the macro is always supportive. I'll wear other jerseys of other teams to our games. I invite other people. I truly feel like the Surge are running our own race. And it's additive to the community. It's not subtractive. And so any way that we can champion more sport and recreation opportunity, the better. But also, I'm watching and paying attention on pricing, on valuation, on all of these other things. The same goes for our league, not just in our market, but across our league. There was no time to do the due diligence that you would expect. And when we acquired the team, we'd never actually watched a CEBL game. So I'd seen enough to know the product was in the high grade of almost NBA quality that persists, and the potentials of what it would grow to in the future like it has over the last 2.5 years. I was paying attention to what other markets were doing, and it's informed a lot of what we don't do, how we pursue things differently, where some teams were looking at being a home team franchise. For us, we were thinking about ourselves more like a live events company, how they were building and assembling their rosters, how we would do it differently. And so definitely competitive landscape is not just asking questions, taking meetings, being curious, but being curious enough to keep a watchful eye and a constant open ear to seeing how things are doing it, not just within your league, but beyond. Keep that lens global. So many of the instincts that I'm looking at are AC Milan, and even our branding was very AC Milan to start. Fashion, bringing in other instincts from other businesses, content businesses. You have to cast a wide net and then build for the business that you want, and then it ends up narrowing.
I love it. For those of you who are watching, if you've never been to a Surge game, get your tickets, because I've been to WinSport. I've seen the game. I've seen Jason, actually, and he's not lying when he says he picks up the paper off the ground. I've seen him pat the backs of people who are working there. He is definitely nose in, fingers out, absolutely doing a great job and bringing such great talent, opportunity, and excitement to a city that can really use it. Jason, thank you for everything that you're doing.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you for watching the Karmali Exchange. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. You can also follow me on social media at Faisal Karmali, where we can continue the business conversation.